Welcome to another episode of The Artsy Raven, a show about writing and publishing with your host, J.F. Garrard.
Welcome to another episode of the Artsy Raven, and today our special guests are MJ Kang and Elsha Kim. So both MJ and Elsha are starring in a play called James and Eddie, which is a rare Korean-Canadian story of war, migration, and family at the 2025 Toronto Fringe Festival, which runs July 3rd to 12th at the Helen Gardiner Playhouse on St. George Street. So welcome.
Thank you for
Thank
having us.
you.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm excited to see an Asian Canadian play. So tell us a little bit about James and Eddie and what inspired you to write this.
So during the pandemic, I kept on having these, and I guess it's that sense of isolation that I felt growing up. So I kept on having, I guess, nightmares or being haunted by the memories of my childhood and memories of this particular family that I knew very well growing up, that dealt with a lot of issues regarding coming to Canada, coming to Toronto from Korea without a real network, and how two families really met, tried to support each other, and then other things came into the way where things became more fractured, unfortunately. But I guess I wanted that kind of wholesome sense of where you just meet someone and you become instant friends, and you want to help each other, you want to like be in each other's lives 24/7, because you just like have this connection that you've been feeling has been missing.
Okay, can you tell us a little summary of the play without giving too much away? And who is James and Eddie?
So it's the summary of the play is there's two families, both Korean, who are living in Toronto, Canada, who deal with issues of, becoming settled in Toronto in a new land that isn't necessarily welcoming. At that time, Toronto was known as Hogtown, and nobody knew what Korea was unless you were a veteran from the Korean War. And these two families meet, they support each other. James and Eddie are the kids of the other family that I grew up with, that were a little younger than me, that I used to play with at this park. They were just like so much fun and sweet, and we were all young, and we all had like dreams of what we want to be when we were older. And they were also kind of, I always wanted like a little brother, so they were the two younger brothers I never had. And the play is really based on 1 year of knowing them, the impact they've made on my life, the life of actually how Koreans in Toronto are seen. I came to Toronto where my last name Kang, I was the second Kang in the white pages at that time in Toronto. So there was like no one was Korean, and it was such a weird world where now it's so diverse. Toronto is such a great city. Back then it wasn't as diverse, and I'm like, it's amazing how much Toronto has grown and been accepting and opening. I think it's been hard though, growing up with those memories of what it was like then and what it is like now, in the disconnect, because I have a daughter, and she just like, she's so proud of being Korean and all her other identities, where people like knew nothing about Korea and would make fun of me and everything. Like I remember my mom would make like Korean style hamburgers for lunch, and it would smell because it was like full of like garlic and kimchi and everything, and I would bring it and people would be like, that's disgusting, and I would not eat lunch. I would throw it in the garbage. So those kind of things I think a lot of people can resonate with. But it's also amazing now how people know what kimchi is. People, I mean, not that kimchi is the only food, but people know like also what like bibimbap is, sundubujigae, all the different kinds of Korean food, and they want to eat it, as opposed to when I was growing up it was really disgusting, considered disgusting. So James and Eddie's is that memory of that time within that year, but really focused in a month kind of like the joys of childhood, but also the realities of dealing with coming to a new land, and the friendships that exist within that.
Now, both of you play characters in the play. So, I guess, could you explain how you got involved? Like, Elsha, can you tell us a little bit about how you got involved in this play?
Yeah, MJ and I got connected through a theater that we're both have relationships with, the Road Theater, and I actually hadn't met her at that point. I know that the other actor, Kat, she has you guys have worked together before, but I just read the play and I was like, oh my gosh, like this is so creatively written, all the characters in it. And MJ, you mentioned before how you wanted to create this atmosphere where you meet someone and you're like best friends right away. And she really did that with the childlikeness of it, some of the characters in there. So it was very interesting to me because when you're first reading it, you don't really realize what you're getting into almost. And then it's like fun, it's lighthearted, and then all of a sudden something shifts. And then at that point, I didn't even realize it was a true story. And I know it says this is a true story, but it just didn't click with me. And then when I realized it really happened, and then I had realized that it was so close to MJ's life. Like it was just, yeah, it's still like hard to fully like let it settle, but when it had that depth and impact to it, I just had to do it.
Okay, so can you tell me a little bit about your history, how you became an actor?
Yeah. Thought you were gonna ask me something about being Korean American. Um, yeah, it's totally random. I didn't take a theater class until my last year of college. I was studying abroad in Paris at a business school. And yeah, business school of all places. And then I was like, I guess I'll take a theater class. It was my last year of schooling. And then afterwards, with my 4-year degree, I became a telemarketer. And I was horrifically miserable, depressed. And I was like, I hate my job. I feel awful. When was the last time I was happy? I was like, oh, that acting class was fun. I'm in LA. I should look into that. And then, yeah, one thing led to another. And it was really during the start of the pandemic in 2020 where I was like, well, I moved back home. I have some more time. There's these online classes. Maybe I'll really do this thing. So that's really where it started.
Cool. Cool.
Hmm.
And I think Elsha's being super humble because I mean, I didn't realize that you just started during the pandemic because you've done so much and she's super talented. And I was like kind of like following her on Instagram and going, come on, respond, respond, Elsha,
We're
respond.
all each other's fans, JF. When I hear about what MJ and Kat have done, I'm like, what
Well, Kat's the other actress and she's pretty extraordinary. She has a long history of
Mhm.
acting in theater and also on film and TV.
the
Was
heck?
it hard casting? Like, was the pool small or is it bigger than what you expected? Or
I think the pool is growing I want to specifically Korean actors of Korean descent. And I think the pool is bigger. It wasn't hard because I was just stalking the act. No, not stalking the actors.
you're stalking people slowly
No,
online, yes.
I had a clear idea of who I wanted, and so it wasn't hard. And I had worked with Kat before, and Kat is also just amazing physically, and she's so
Wow.
funny. So I was like, and my barometer of working with actors is that initially I wasn't going to act in this play, but if I get excited to act with someone, because I mean, I am an actor, but I'm kind of an odd actor that I don't need to act. Like my personality is more of a being a writer. So, but when I go, oh my gosh, these actors are so extraordinary. I want to be in the ring with them. I want to like play with them. Then I go, well, I want to work with them, obviously. And that's what I felt with both Elsha and Kat.
Now, for both of you, what do you hope the audience takes away from the play, especially those that aren't Canadian, Korean Canadian? You know what I mean? Like, what do you hope resonates with people?
I think for me, I don't think this play is this play specifically about two Korean Canadian families, but it's not like and there's so many great details that are very specific to the culture, but it's not a play just for obviously for Korean Canadians or people of Korean descent at all. It's a play that for anyone that has family really, that has friendships, that has dreams, that has hopes, that like wants more in their life, but also people who want to laugh and have fun. That's the thing that I would not want them to take away with is to leave the theater, and they're not going to. I think they're going to cry, quite frankly. Elstra, I think they're going to cry, right? They're going to cry at the end. They're going to laugh, and they're going to like really like hug their parents and just appreciate them, and then also cry. But I don't want them to talk about their grocery list or where they're going for dinner. Like, and they're not going to. That's like the biggest thing I guarantee they're gonna feel so many different emotions. And really kind of appreciate and love who they are, like all their identities, and also love who is with them.
So Elsha, do you have anything you want the audience to walk away?
Yeah, I think for one, I think of just another level of grace for what people might be walking through. I think that there are some characters in this play, like the complexity of what they're carrying and how that might come out in their actions or behavior, but that is because of something that they are personally experiencing or have experienced. And I think that we don't know what everyone is going through. We might think like someone's having a bad day, but we really don't know. And also what MJ said, to really appreciate, be grateful for our parents, our families, our network. And really, even though this play is for everyone, I hope that people can see the generations before who did emigrate here and realize like everything that those people walked through so that we could have and be where we are today.
Okay. So how do you prepare yourself as an actor for such a emotional story? Like, do you you're dealing with trauma and other issues, and like
Hmm.
I don't know, how do you prepare yourself for such a role?
It's It's hard, honestly. Personally for me when we're rehearsing and going through it at times, like sometimes I just have to do the lines and do, not really like drop in because when you're really in there, then it is like very it can be very difficult. And so I think it's just taking time to really yeah, craft the character out, really realize this has really happened. It's also super easy when you're working with somebody and you just kind of go off of what they're giving you and you're just present in the moment. But I also think it's important that we've talked about this in certain scenes where it's not supposed to be heavy. When you're the kids, you're not supposed to carry that weight. So it's kind of just being present and true to what's happening in that scene at that moment, I'd say.
Okay, I know MJ's here. I was gonna ask what was it like working with MJ? Like, is it like, because usually when you do plays, like the writer might not necessarily be there, right?
Yeah. Oof, I'm so thankful, MJ. Like, for one, you've written an incredible play to let us into that world. I told you before, I think it's very brave to be able to go there and remember those things and to present it in such a graceful light where we can, I don't know if this is giving the play away, so I won't say it, but yeah, acting with MJ has been just because it's real. She doesn't have to act it. I can see it. I can see it in her emotions. I can see it in her. Yeah, no, it's like so beautiful and also there's this reverence to come to the play with. Like these are and I think that's the thing sometimes, there are several true stories, but these are real people, these are real characters. And even if it's fictional, that has been someone's reality once before. So approaching it with that level of reverence and doing it with MJ, that's like, yeah, like wow.
So what kind of conversations do you hope this play will spark within the Korean Canadian community and beyond?
I think hopefully they'll feel heard and valued for their history in Canada. I mean, I don't think that's been explored or expressed in a deep and meaningful way. What the experience has been for Koreans in Canada. So I want the generations, as Elsha mentioned, generations that existed in Canada and that came before us to really feel like they've done an amazing job, the best they can, really, with what their abilities were at the time, considering, you know, like coming from war, coming from occupation, coming from so many things that existed in their lives. And I mean, right now, when you see Koreans in Canada, they're thriving, they're flourishing. It's such a, I mean, it's quite frankly, I think it's such a blessing because of them. So I hope that's what people come away with wanting to know more of the history of Koreans in Canada.
Okay. Can you both talk a little bit about how you came to North America? Like, you're not, are you Canadian or are you American?
I'm American,
Okay.
Korean American. My parents emigrated here um, in their 20s, 30s for school to the East Coast. hmm
I was born in Seoul, Korea, and then I
Okay.
immigrated to Toronto, Canada, and I grew up in Toronto. Um, yeah, my uncle sponsored my father to. It's really, it's so complicated because at that time we had my father had at that time both my parents had many siblings. My father had two brothers who after the Korean War everyone could decide if they could which side they were going to go to, North or South Korea. And a couple of my father's brothers decided to go to North Korea. And so my father had a high-paying job. He was very young during the Korean War, and then when he grew up, he had a very high-paying job that was going to give him, a promotion. But with that promotion, he would have to do a further background check. Sorry, so much information. Anyway, so regardless, so, and regardless, what happened is that we end up coming to Toronto in hopes that my dad could get that same kind of, not the same kind of position, but a similar position because someone under him had gotten a similar position, like a lower position in Toronto. Turned out that there wasn't a job for him. My dad had to start all over again. It was a huge, like fall from like class, fall from status, fall from, my dad, he went to, I don't know, he went to Seoul National University, which is a top university in Korea. It's harder to get into now and then into Harvard. I mean, Seoul National University is harder to get into than Harvard now and then. And so my dad went there, and so he was. I mean, he worked so hard because his family lost everything during the Korean War. He was like, they were impoverished. They had no money. I remember my grandmother telling my oldest sister basically that he had like half a bowl of rice that he could eat a day, and she used to put sugar in it so that he could have some energy to study. And this is when he was a teenager. Anyway, so and then he did so well. He studied really hard. He worked really hard. He got a high-paying job. He was up for this amazing promotion. My mom was like, she had 3 young kids, and then because of the political situation, they came to Toronto. They found out that they couldn't work, that their university educations were invalid. So my dad became a worm picker, like he did anything and everything he could. So that's the experience I had growing up in Toronto, seeing my parents work. Sorry, I'm going to get sad, but I don't need to work like to the bone so hard, and seeing them like go, what have we done? And then of course the whole saving phase, like they can't go back to Korea,
Yes, the saving phase,
right?
yeah, because you're in a foreign country and people at home think you're doing well here. You
And you
can't
still,
tell them we're not.
no, and then they
Yeah.
still had to still say how great they're doing. But then my mom would secretly like write my aunt's letter saying, please, we don't even have money for underwear. And so we would get these packages in the mail, and like my aunts would, anyway, it's kind of sad, but my aunts would like send us like underwear, socks, anything. And then like they also sent us like pretty dresses so we could still look nice. So that's like, so I experienced all of that, like seeing at a very young age, because I came when I was 2, seeing my parents work so hard, like having a high status life in Seoul, Korea, losing everything and seeing what that meant. And then this play starts when I'm 8, and seeing like my mother feel like finally she has a friend again. So after 6 years of living in Toronto and being really lonely and feeling like she's lost everything, having that connection. And that's where this play starts.
Yeah, I remember my family getting packages of underwear from Hong Kong as well. It was like a thing. But sorry, you said your dad was a worm picker?
He worked so many jobs. So he worked as a court translator, a worm picker, a room service waiter. Like once I filmed this movie, this feature film where I act opposite Philip Seymour Hoffman inside this like hotel where I told my dad where it was because he dropped me off when I was filming in Toronto, and he told me, oh, that's a hotel that I was a room service waiter for. So, and then I remember there was like these Christmas parties we went to where we dressed up, we looked always very nice, and it was that hotel. So it was the weirdest experience, growing up in Toronto where I would be filming, working on TV shows, working on movies and stuff like that. And then my dad and my mom would say, "Oh, we went here. This is like where, there are stories of all of their hardships." While I'm like, I have a different life because of them.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's like parents used to say, oh, all their hardships, and then we sort of like I tell my son now about what it was like, and I have a 10-year-old, and then they're just like, oh, you're just making it up or whatever. Well, I mean, they're young, so maybe one day they'll understand. Who knows? Now, how did you bring the production to Toronto Fringe? Like, you apply for it, or
I entered the playwriting competition there. So
okay?
I do spend a lot of time in Toronto still. I've worked in Toronto for quite a bit, and then also my family's in Toronto, so I spend quite a bit of time in Toronto. I applied, and so I applied. I thought the only way I'm gonna do the Fringe is if I basically win a prize. And so I got the prize for Best New Play, which includes a slot for the Fringe Festival, and then also just a little bit of money to help produce the play.
Now, are your parents gonna come watch this
My
show?
parents, um, they passed.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my parents passed too. It happens. I mean, unfortunately, when you're successful, you want to celebrate it with people that aren't here sometimes. So,
What my
um,
dad said though, like my dad had dementia at the end. And I remember, like, I always kind of felt like a failure, like I never did enough because they wanted me to be a lawyer, things like that. And my dad, like one day towards the end, when he was, like when, it was towards the end and I was there in his hospital room, he woke up one day and he was like, "Let's go." And I was like, where do you want to go? And he said, "We'll go to your play. We're going to go see your play." Because my dad, I didn't realize that he cared so much to go and see my plays. That was like what he lived for. I didn't know that. And he never said that to me. And so in like 2 days before he died, he gave me that gift.
oh, that's lovely, actually. I think he meant it, and know they're always with you, right? Um,
That's beautiful.
yeah. Now, I guess
And
what's next after this play? I mean, for both of you, you guys have different projects happening, right? So, Elsha, like, what are you doing after this?
I don't really have plans. Just gonna come back, relax a little bit. It's summer. Do some travel. I'm gonna go to Korea, but yeah, no, just taking it easy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
don't go back to telemarketing, right? So,
She doesn't need to. She's very
yeah,
successful.
yeah,
Who knows? No, we won't. But
She's gonna be a billionaire. I know it.
yeah,
hallelujah, pray for me, JF.
yeah.
But MJ's family will be at the play.
My sister will be in, obviously my friends and stuff like that. So after this, I have a couple of residencies I'm doing in Tennessee and also just outside of Vancouver. And then I also have a day job where I work for Netflix. So I'm doing that. So Korean content basically I make into English content.
Now, will the play be anywhere else after Toronto Fringe, do you think?
Let's hope, right?
Yeah, because I'm
Scotland.
gonna miss it. I'm actually going to Vancouver
Oh, you're
in
gonna
that same
miss
time
it. You're gonna
period.
miss
So
a
I
great show.
yeah.
I think I mean, it's like, honestly, I wouldn't put myself in this position if I didn't think it was gonna be a really good show. Because I also know Toronto critics and people are very honest and sometimes very critical. I've experienced so much. I mean, because, I started so young, right? I started as a teenager writing plays, and when you're a teenager receiving like press sometimes where it's negative, it's quite painful. And so I remember those. I remember like someone saying, but it's true. I remember, and someone writing in one of the newspapers in Toronto that the artistic director must have had a death wish for producing my play. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And
Gosh.
in the
That's
meantime, yeah,
harsh.
it's very harsh. And I'm like this kid. So I was a kid, really. So it was very hard. So I didn't want to put myself in that line of fire again because it was, it's a line of fire unless I knew. So I think that's also why I applied for the competition, that I also knew that it's been validated in some ways that, they could still attack me which they might, which hopefully they won't, but they can. The critics can still attack me, but that's okay because I have some validation at least.
Yeah, I think when you're a writer and actor and you're public facing in a way, you become a target. Like I know some writers that stop writing because they're afraid, right?
Well,
Like they don't want the
Yeah.
spotlight, right? So,
But I think also because when I started very young and I started where people felt like, and I still think this happens to this day, oh, she got produced or because she's Asian or because she's a minority or because she's
well,
an
yes,
immigrant,
now there's that
right?
backlash on diversity, especially in the US right now. But yes,
Yeah, so
yeah.
that still exists, which is nuts. And I think there were a lot of people, unfortunately, at that time who really felt that and wanted to attack me for that. And so I'm quite frankly preparing myself for that again. Um, and but it's so I'm gonna like protect myself because it's not something that who wants to deal with that over and over again.
I mean, both of you as writer and actors deal with a lot of rejection. So how do you deal with rejection, Elsha?
there's so much rejection in acting. Um, For me personally, like I did a project and yeah, there are reviews out come out like, well, the acting sucks, blah. And honestly, nobody probably thinks that more about yourself sometimes than yourself. But the thing is for me, like my identity is not rooted in that, you know. I have a very firm faith, and for me, that's where I get my identity from. So no matter what happens in my career, in work, in whatever anyone says about me, because the truth is I do suck sometimes and I will screw up. But who cares? You know, as long as you're taking the risks and living courageously and boldly, like put yourself out there, get rejected. Look, I will say sometimes auditioning over and over and getting rejected isn't fun, but if it's not for you, then like do something else that you love. But at least you tried. So that's who cares?
For me, every rejection I get, I go, okay, good, thank you. It's good to know. And then it makes me work harder, basically.
Yeah.
Because I fail all the time and it's good. It's really important to fail. It's so important to fail.
Okay, I guess one last question. Like for anyone that wants to be either a new writer or actor, do you have any advice for people listening?
Just start, I would say. Whether you're acting or writing, I think we're in a day and age now where people are making their own content. So find a story, find your voice, and start writing, start creating.
And keep on loving yourself, like just always, and love others too. Like really be grateful. Prop yourself up, but prop other people too. Like tell them because there are so much talent that I don't think gets recognized. So keep
Mm.
whenever, never think you're better than anyone because you're not. And also,
Mhm.
but always see the talent in everyone because there's so much talent in everyone.
Thank you for spending time with us. And I hope everything goes well and that we'll see this maybe in a bigger theater and then I can actually finally watch it one day. So,
I hope so. Thank you, JF.
Yeah, thanks, JF, for having us on.
Yeah.
for more upcoming episodes of the Artsy Raven about writing and publishing, visit us at jfgarage.com/arpodcast. A reminder to Patreon subscribers that there is bonus content available for every episode on the Patreon website. If you enjoyed the show, you can show your appreciation by buying us some digital coffee. The Artsy Raven is produced by J.F. Garrard. The voice in the show's introduction is Chris Gorman, and music is by Tim Moore. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe.